Hi, everybody. Let's get started. This is Ari Paparo, the CEO and founder of Beeswax. I'm here with Shamim Samadi, our Chief Product Officer.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. This is the first webinar Beeswax has ever done, so we're pretty excited. We're going to go through a fairly brief but informative review of our recent developments around native advertising, as well as a product demo. Shouldn't take very long, and hopefully it'll be worth your time. So just a quick introduction to Beeswax, as I know some of you are our customers and some are not. So Beeswax, a year and a half ago, released its groundbreaking bidder as a service product. And the basic concept is that we have a full stack bidder that has functionality equivalent to a DSP, but we extend that and allow our customers to extend that to get the benefits of having a technology stack they developed in-house. So most commonly, customers write their own algorithms, get raw data feeds, white label the UI, and in many other ways extend our stack. One of the benefits of our product is that it is a product. So unlike a custom development, we can continue to roll out new features, and all of the customers on our stack get them. That's why we're here today, to talk about native. Before I leave, I just want to point out one recent accolade. Beeswax was named by Gartner as a cool vendor in advertising, which is a designation they bring to vendors they think their customers should be looking at and adopting to move themselves forward. This is based around their understanding of the market that the needs for transparency and control are more and more important to advertisers, and that's firmly where we stand. Well, I want to move on from the Beeswax advertisement and move on to what we actually came here to talk about native. So I'm going to hand it over to Shamim to walk us through the solution.
Great. So one quick housekeeping thing. You guys will see on your screen a Q&A button on the top left. So as you have questions, please go ahead and type in those questions, and we'll review them at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to start off with sort of a quick native overview. Again, the goal here is to set a little bit of context of why we're doing native and what the implementation looks like in Beeswax, and then give you a sort of very hands-on demo for how you can leverage native in the platform and start to run some campaigns. So starting off with sort of a little bit of why native. This is a relatively new channel. Couple of things that are interesting is the exchange partners are saying there's relatively low bid density for native formats, mostly because buyers don't have the capabilities. And so I would first start by saying it is a real opportunity in terms of less competition. Another sort of data point is that the early buyers who are leveraging native are seeing positive results. So one sort of stat that MoPub uses is that one buyer saw an increase of CTR of 129% and conversions by 384%. So early folks who are adopting are seeing positive results. And it also makes sense given that when ads sort of coexist with content, users see them more as treat them more as content and less as a sort of interruption. So that's a little bit around the motivation. I wanted to just show, before we dive in, a couple of examples of native creatives because they are different from system to system. So let me just hop into a quick view of Google's native gallery. So here's one example of a native ad that's sort of on native content where the tiles are smaller, so you have sort of a smaller native ad. Here's another example, again, sort of smaller tiles. Here's an example with a larger sort of content tile, so the native ad itself is larger. Here it is as sort of an interstitial with content, right? So just a few examples of some native ads in the wild. So moving on, a couple of concepts I think that are important is that native is both an inventory type and a creative type. So we're unlocking new inventory here, right? And the inventory is a bit different in that, as you guys saw, the ad slot size is not fixed. Unlike a 300 by 250, the ad slot size changes based off of how the publisher has implemented native. So it could be smaller, it could be larger, et cetera. And the contexts are also sort of new. These are mostly, especially in mobile in-app, in the form of article feeds, social feeds, content walls, et cetera. So it's a new inventory type that we're unlocking. And it's also a new creative type, right? And so unlike, again, there are no tags in native. Again, the ad slot size is not fixed. So you give us raw assets in the form of images, titles, videos, etc. And then those are assembled on the fly by the publisher to construct the ad unit. So two important concepts there. In terms of our beta and how we're sort of starting with native, we're focusing on mobile in-app. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Like largely a lot of the action in native is in in-app environment. And our partners in Google and MoPub have a fair amount of scale. So we're starting with mobile in-app. There are plans to expand that, and we'll share plans with our customers as those solidify. So just to summarize sort of the scope of our beta right now, the inventory type is mobile in-app. The exchanges are Google AdX and MoPub, and we'll talk about the scale that we have there later. And all of the formats that are available on AdX and MoPub are supported as part of this. So we have sort of full support of Google and MoPub. A couple of points, diving a little bit deeper into the formats, and we'll go into more detail here. But there's two sort of broad categories of native in-app formats on MoPub and AdX. The first are native app install formats. These are supported both on AdX and MoPub. And the raw assets here are more revolve around mobile apps. So things like the app icon on the iTunes or Android store, the app rating, the price, etc. So some of the assets are very sort of app specific. There's image and video versions of this, and the use case really is if you're driving app installs, you'll choose one of these native app install formats. The second category is available on AdX only, and it's called the native content format, and it essentially is used more for branding or standard performance, so not for app installs. The distinction here is while the number of assets are largely the same, the type of assets are slightly different. So instead of the app icon logo, it may be an advertiser logo. Instead of the app rating, it's the advertiser name. So the assets differ slightly between these two categories of formats. So diving into that a little bit deeper, let's just start with native app install. So there's two versions of the native app install format, an image and a video. And you'll see sort of, the required assets for native image, you can see there on the left, it's title, description, main image. One thing to call out is that the dimensions of the main image is pretty unique one. It's 1200 by 627. It has to be that exactly. It has to be that exactly on both MoPub and AdX. So that's one thing I'd like to call out. And then the app icon is also required. You'll see again, as I mentioned before, there's several optional assets that are app specific. So the call to action, app store rating, app store and price, right? And the native video app install is essentially the same format with one additional asset, which is the video. So with these native video formats, they start by displaying the image, and on click, they move into a full screen video experience. So that's why they both have an image and a video. The second category of formats is the native content format. So again, a couple of things here. I mean, the title is off. These are sort of native content formats, but you'll notice a couple of things. There are no. Because this format can only run on AdX. The required assets are sort of more defined. So similar to the app install, you have the title, description, main image, and instead of app assets, you have advertiser specific assets. And so that's our sort of native content formats. So before I'd like to jump into a demo to show you how this all works. There's a couple of concepts that I want to explain first, which will make the demo sort of make more sense. So there's one new object that we're introducing that we call a native offer. So it's available both in the UI and API. And the goal of this object is essentially to really sort of create operational efficiency. So one of the problems with native, as you just saw, there's often very similar assets from creative to creative. You use the same title or description many times. And we don't want our users to have to type those in every time they build a creative. We also don't want our users to have to update the offers on each creative, or sort of update those assets for every creative that uses them. So instead, we want them to be able to edit it once and have it apply to all creatives. So the offer sort of houses the most common assets, so things like the logo, title, and description. Offers are associated to creatives in a one-to-many fashion, and we'll see what this looks like. And again, that sort of association allows for easy edits. So you edit the offer once and it applies to all associated creatives. So that's the first concept, that we introduce a new object called the native offer. The second thing I want to call out is that there's some small changes to existing objects. So in the line item, we introduced a new line item type. So it used to be banner and video. Now we have a native line item type. And the reason for this is that there's some different native targeting that's native specific. And also native creatives can only be associated to native line items, which is similar to how banner and video work. And then the second thing that we're changed to existing objects is that we're introducing new native creative templates. So there's 6 new creative templates, 2 sort of image templates for app install and content, and 4 for video. And the reason why there's 4 is because there's two sort of 1 for each inline and wrapper format. And we'll go through this once I go through the demo. And the last thing I want to second to last thing I want to call out is there is a new targeting key for native. The one thing I'll mention, so it's called layout targeting. The one thing I'll mention is that since native is relatively new, what exchanges make targetable specifically to native inventory is changing from time to time. So we're starting with layout targeting, which is a targeting key that MoPub supports, and the values that are possible here are things like targeting content walls versus app walls versus news feeds, etc. And so this is available, and you may want to use this because you may see, for example, as you scale your native spend, that content walls perform better than app walls, etc. So we want to introduce this new targeting key, and as things evolve, we may add other targeting that's native specific. And then lastly, before I jump into the demo, native reporting. So all of the existing report types support native line items and creative. So our performance report, geo report, etc. All metrics, so including video metrics like plays, midpoints, completes, are supported. The one sort of gotcha for native is that third-party scripts, so there is no notion of sort of JavaScript, arbitrary JavaScript in native, and so that's not supported, as well as impression pixels. So it's supported on MoPub, but not on AdX yet, and so we don't have the notion of a additional pixel that you can add to a native creative at this time. So with that, that's sort of all the background. I thought I'd jump into a live demo to show you what this looks like. So I'm now in sort of the Beeswax interface. So the first thing you'll notice is that in the trafficking tab, and you'll notice this once we enable your account for native, is there is a new object here called native offers. So that's the first thing, and let me sort of walk through that. So when I go to native offers, I see all the native offers I've created within the advertiser context that I'm in. So I'm in the Beeswax advertiser. And diving into the native offer, again, the offer houses all the common assets that you may use across different creatives. So you have an offer name, you select the advertiser. This field, which is how will this native offer be used, these map to the 6 creative types that we talked about earlier. The best practice is to select all of them. And what this does is, depending on which creative formats you select here, the required assets on the offer change. So, if you're only doing an app install creative, you wouldn't see an advertiser logo asset in your offer because that's not required. But the best practice is to select all of them so that you can use the native offer on the broadest set of creatives possible. So just sort of going down, right, you have an app icon, an advertiser logo, which I've already selected and uploaded. The title, so since we're Beeswax, the title is Beeswax Bass. The description, call to action, advertiser name, app store, star rating, etc. So, this, you guys will see once we get to the creative, how this is used. Again, instead of typing all this information every time you create a creative, you build the offer once and associate it to creative. So it really helps with the operational efficiency. So that's the native offer. Now going into a line item. So there are no changes at the campaign level. Campaigns stay the same. They continue to have budgets and flight dates and all those good things. Now going into a line item, there are a couple of changes. I mentioned one of them, which is there's a new line item type, right? It used to be banner and video only. There's a new native option. So it's important that you select your line item as native when you're running native campaigns. The rest of the fields are all the same at the line item sort of overview level. The next thing that's different on the line item, which we discussed earlier, is native targeting. So we're starting with one targeting key called native layout, and you'll notice these are the available options that we discussed earlier. So you can include target just a content wall, for example. And that's what changes on the line item level. It's really those two things, line item type and a new native targeting. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this line item and now go to the sort of creative workflow. I'll go to new creative, and the first thing you'll notice is that there are those 6 new native creative types that we walked through, right? So I will create a native image app install creative. I will call it Beeswax native creative. So similar to other creative types, you first select the advertisers, so you get the domain and category, and then in add content, the first thing you do is select the native offer. That's the offer that I created in step 1. So now all of the logo, title, description has been inherited in this creative. I specify my click URL, and for this creative in particular, the one missing asset that was not defined in the offer is the main image, right? So that sort of 1200 by 627 image, I'm gonna upload that. And then there are the exchange specific options as normal. I'm going to preview that first actually to see what that looks like. So the preview, we construct a preview. Again, as you guys know, native, depending on the publisher, it's going to be constructed in different ways. So we've mocked a couple of versions. So this sort of social feed version is a larger tile that has the title and the stars and the iTunes store. And the content feed version, in this case, it may display the description because the publisher takes the description. So you could sort of get a feel for a couple of versions of what the creative will look like through the preview. And then lastly, you associate the creative to the line item in the exact same way as you normally would, and you could make that active and it starts to deliver. So I guess one thing I'll just show is just to sort of drive the point home, depending on the native creative you select. So let's just look at a native video app install. It's the same process. You still specify the offer, and you'll notice now there are 2 different assets that you need, the main image and the video. Again, you only upload the incremental assets to each creative. And sort of lastly, let me show you the main thing with reporting actually is that all the report types that we currently support native creatives and line items. One thing I will mention is that we're adding a new sort of a line item type field in our reporting so that you can break out banner versus native versus video more easily, and that's coming in the coming days. So I'm gonna hop back to the deck, and again, as you guys have questions, please be posting them to the Q&A. A couple more things, and then I'll sort of take questions. I want to talk about the scale of native. So there is a reasonable amount of scale here on AdX and MoPub. So we just took a view at US and some of the key European countries. We have access to more than this, but just to give you an example, in the US there's 2.6 billion daily auctions, which is around 32,000 QPS of native inventory in the US only across these two exchanges. And sort of similar scale if you look at the top 5 countries in Europe. So there is a fair amount of scale here, and of course this is not inclusive of all the countries, but this just gives you a sense of the level of scale. And then lastly, in terms of activation, this is available now. So there is a step where your account manager needs to do a couple of things. One, we just need to enable you for native, which will, you'll see then the native offer and the line item type. And then you'll want to allocate some of your QPS to be native QPS, right? This is incremental traffic that you aren't accessing. So managing that with your account manager to make sure we're giving you the right proportion of native traffic is important. And we don't charge additional for this feature. And lastly, I would say, like anything else, start with a single native line item to make sure you understand the workflow. You see all the data flow end to end, and then you can move to sort of more advanced formats and targeting. So that is really sort of the content that I wanted to go through. And I'm going to now sort of take questions that folks have posted. Let me pull that up. All right, so the first question was around how much native inventory is available, how much percent is that in relation to non-native. So I sort of answered that, I think, in absolute numbers. I guess to give you a sense, it's probably on ADDX and MoPub, it's a incremental in terms of percentage, maybe an incremental sort of 20% of traffic on each of those exchanges would be my guess, but hopefully the absolute numbers help. And the other question is, will you send the deck out to us? And the answer is yes, we'll send out the deck. There's some more details in the deck that I didn't go through that have just more specifics on the creatives and the constraints that you may find helpful. So, I'm happy to, if you have other questions, we wanted to keep this sort of brief and informative to go through sort of all the core capabilities. If there are other questions, please post them. Happy to take them. Otherwise, I think we'll sort of wrap up.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us. Really appreciate it. We know you're all busy. And I just want to leave with one final thought, which is, like Shamim said, we're very open. If you have questions or comments about our service, you need things, please let us know. We try to be very reactive to customer needs. And for those of you who are not currently customers, once again, feel free to reach out, and we are happy to work with you to come up with a solution that makes sense for you. We will be doing these webinars as new product developments emerge that are relevant to our customers, and please look out for those emails and join us in the future. So once again, thank you. Thanks, Shamim. Hope we'll get some people trying out this great new feature and expanding their use of the Beeswax service.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.